In this video, we will do a brief analysis of Indian Economic Service paper which was held today on June 22, 2025. The first question is define marginal rate of substitution. Calculate the marginal rate of substitution for a utility function u is equal to q1 raised power alpha times q2 raised power beta. Okay, so what is meant by marginal rate of substitution? Marginal rate of substitution is the rate at which consumer can give some amount of one good for or in exchange for another good while maintaining the same level of satisfaction. So graphically it is like this. If we have this indifference curve, so marginal rate of substitution simply shows how much units of good one consumer sacrifice for another good to maintain the same level of satisfaction of utility. Okay, so given this utility function u is equal to q1 raised power alpha times q2 raised power beta, MRS, as we know, it is simply equal to the ratio of the marginal utility of good 1 upon marginal utility of good 2. MRS also denotes the slope of the indifference curve. So on this channel, I will be solving the mathematical economics portion. Okay, you can check out. I already solved some videos today. So next question is specify the Cobb-Douglas production function taking two inputs in producing one output. Interpret the parameters used in this equation or in this function. So in this case, what happens? We have a Cobb-Douglas production function. So we know that the Cobb-Douglas production function is a function of labor and capital, which is equal to A times L to the power alpha times capital raised power beta. Okay, A denotes the technology parameter or Solo's residual, L denotes the units of labor employed, K denotes the units of capital employed, and this alpha and beta, they denote the output elasticity with respect to labor and capital. Okay, so in this question you have to interpret it also. Next we have to comment on the role of the conjectural variations in the determination of the oligopoly. Okay, so conjectural variation refers to the firm's expectations about how its rivals will react to its own output or prices. So we have two conjectural variances in oligopoly. One in Carnot model, where firms compete in terms of output, and we have the Bertrand model, where firms compete in terms of prices. The next question is rent is not the income of a particular factor of production, but merely an aspect of income of any factor of production. You have to discuss it. Okay, so I will be explaining here a little bit about other questions. So we have to state and explain the Coase theorem. Okay, this Coase theorem was developed by Ronald Coase. It simply states when property rights are well defined and transaction costs are low, individuals can negotiate to reach an efficient allocation of resources regardless of initial assignment of the property rights. Then next question was about write the economic meaning of first order derivative of short-run production function. Interpret the situations where one second order derivative of their function is 0. Okay, so in the short run, we know in the short run production function one variable factor is fixed. Okay, so short run production function, the first derivative with respect to variable input, like let us say labor, represents the marginal product of labor. Okay, so if we have a short run production, that is output is a function of labor, which is equal to f of L. So first derivative, that is df of L with respect to labor, sorry, the derivative of the production function with respect to output, or let's write it like this. If we have Q is a function of labor, then dQ upon dL, it shows the first derivative and it shows us the marginal product of labor. Okay, I am not explaining here all the things, just giving a gist of this paper here. Okay, so the mathematical portion I will be explaining those very videos in detail on this channel only. So next question is explain why adjusted R square is more important for testing the goodness of it of a regression model. So we use the adjusted R square because it penalizes the addition of irrelevant independent variables unlike the standard or normal R square. Next question that was asked is how can an ordinary demand function be derived in a two commodity framework? Show that the ordinary demand function is homogeneous of degree 0 with respect to all prices and income. I will be explaining this video in detail. So what happens, what is meant by ordinary demand function? We call it the Marshallian demand function. It is a where the demand of a good is a function of income and prices. Okay, so we can construct it is a problem of maximization. That means consumer wants to maximize the utility from consumption of two goods, let us say x and y, subject to the constraint that is facing, that is the budget constraint, that is price of good x times units of good x plus price of good y times units of good y should be equal to the income of the consumer. Okay, so we have to also prove that it is homogeneous of degree 0 with respect to all prices and income. Okay, so this is I can make detailed video on these very questions. The next question is a consumer is observed to purchase x is equal to 10, y is equal to 5 at a price of x is 1 and price of y is 3. The consumer is also observed to purchase x is equal to 9 units, y is equal to 3 at price is equal to 2 and price of x is equal to 2 and price of y is equal to 2. Is this behavior of the consumer consistent with the axioms of the revealed preferences? I will be taking this very question also. I will solve them in detail. Then the next question was, how do you construct the long run average cost curve from the short run average cost curves? Explain why an average cost curve is U-shaped under variable returns to scale. So long run average cost curve is constructed by plotting the what we call the minimum of average variable cost curves for each output level, considering all possible plant sizes. Now, why it is U-shaped? It is due to the economies of scale and diseconomies of scale as the production level changes. Then the next question is derive the necessary and sufficient conditions for firm's equilibrium in producing goods by using two inputs at a given cost. Illustrate your answer graphically. Okay, so we have the necessary condition is that the Morner rate of technical substitution between two inputs should be equal to the ratio of the prices of the two inputs, and sufficiency condition shows us the convexity of the isochronous that should be satisfied. So another question was explain the concept of horizontal, vertical and conglomerate merger of firms with suitable examples. Discuss one objective briefly in each case. Next question was about the asymmetric information does not cause any efficiency problem, but it does have an equity implication. Implication is rather critically. We have to give the answer. So by asymmetric information, it is a situation in economic transactions where one party possesses more or better information than the another party. Its consequences are moral hazard, adverse selection, or market failure. So this is the theoretical question. Then we have to, next question is, what do you mean by free rider problem? By free rider problem, it is a situation where some individuals benefit from a shared resource, good or service without contributing their fair price or paying for it at all. Okay, this is also theoretical one. Then we have why is an input demand called the derived demand? So an input demand is called a derived demand because it exists due to the demand for the final goods and services that the input helps us to produce. Now, so then we have the critically examine the Marx theory of distribution and explain how it differs from Kaldor's theory of distribution. So next question was about the externalities. Define externalities in context of public goods. So in rather externalities in public goods is a cost or benefit that arises from the production or consumption of a good or a service that affect a third party not involved in the transaction. So then we have to give explain the main features of sense theory of social choice. How is it relevant to the present situation? So this is also the theoretical one. So I'm not here I'm not a teacher or a professor who will explain all the things here. I'm my strong zone is the mathematical portion. That is the essence of my channel also, where I solve the mathematical portion only. So next question is define feasible solution, basic feasible solution, and optimal solution of linear programming problem. Explain the concepts by taking the hypothetically constrained minimization problem. Now, in linear programming, a feasible solution satisfies all the constraints of the problem, including the non-negative, what we call non-negative constraints or variables, rather non-negative variables. Now, a basic feasible solution is a feasible solution where number of non-zero variables is limited to the number of constraints, and the variables corresponding to the constraints are linearly independent. Then, next question is related to solve the following constrained profit maximization problem using graphical method. So maximize profit, which is equal to 4 times x plus x1 plus 3 times x2, subject to the constraints x1 plus 2x2 is less or equal to 8. Next constraint is x1 is less or equal to 6, x2 is less or equal to 3. I have solved this question on this channel. You can check it out. So we have the 3 constraints. Then we need to find out the common region of the 3 constraints. Then we need to find out the corner values and evaluate them in the objective function, which is the profit function here. Okay. Next question is about the rank of the matrix. Rank of the matrix is the maximum number of linearly independent rows or columns in the matrix. So we have to write down the full implications of full rank assumption of a multiple linear regression model. Why full rank assumption is not required. So then we have another question. Explain the concept of eigenvalues and eigenvectors associated with a square symmetric matrix. How are the concepts used in principal component analysis? Next question is about explain the meaning of the Nash equilibrium. Is a situation where every player chooses its optimal strategy given other firms have also, or players have also chosen their optimal strategy. So it is to be explained in the context of firms competing with each other with respect to price. That is the Bertrand model. Why is the equilibrium stable? Why can the prices not rise prices to the level that maximizes the joint profit? Then next question is under what conditions is an economic agent a risk averter or risk averse? So an economic agent is the risk averter if they prefer a certain outcome with a guaranteed payoff to the gamble with the same expected value. Then there is a question about economic of uncertainty. So I will be taking this very question also. That is, suppose that an economic agent has 4 choices, A1, A2, A3 and A4 with the following transitivity rule. That is, A1 is preferred to A2, A2 is preferred to A3 and A3 is preferred to A4, as well as Newman Morgenson axioms involving a risk. Find out the expected utilities if the agent is indifferent between A2 uh, and a lottery ticket with probabilities of 0.4 and 0.6 for A1 and A4, and then A3 and lottery ticket with probabilities of 0.3 and 0.7 for A2 and A4. Assume that utility of A1 is 300 and utility of A4 is 100. So I am not getting this question, so I will try to solve it if I can get the essence of this question, how to solve it. Then the question is about a monopolist cannot increase price indefinitely. Explain what would be the price if the government wants to set a price ceiling that maximizes the monopolist's output. So then we have the another question, that is the competitors will match the price reduction more closely than the price increase. So this question is about the Kinkin demand curve. How is the problem of prisoner's dilemma associated with the duopoly model? Then we have another question. Construct the compensated demand function from one utility function. Utility is a function of two goods Q1 and Q2 which are related like this. U is equal to Q1 raised power alpha times Q2, where Q1 and Q2 are the quantities of two goods and U is the level of utility. Explain the shape of this demand curve. What would be the optimum expenditure function? So this is about the Hixian demand function. Okay. So here we want to minimize the expenditure, which is equal to price of good 1 times units of good 1 plus price of good 2 times units of good 2, subject to the fixed level of utility or utility constraint here. So I have solved this question also on this channel. Then we have the question, explain graphically why there is no supply curve in a monopoly market. Okay, so in monopoly there is no supply curve because monopolist is a price maker, not a price taker, and he can control both price and quantity, and you have to explain it graphically here. Then the question is related to what is market signaling, distinguish between separating equilibrium and pooling equilibrium in this context, which equilibrium is efficient, justify your answer. Next question is about explain the policy pricing of the public sector enterprises by using the long run marginal cost based price. How is it different from public utility rate of returns approach? Next question, which is about the mathematical economics. I will take this question also and try to solve it. The following table shows the coefficient matrix of the economy consisting of three industries, each producing their internal use as well as the external demand. So we have this is the question related to input output model, and we have to interpret each row and column in this matrix. Okay, calculate the Leontief inverse matrix. Then what should be the required output by each industry to meet the external demand given the following matrix. Final demand curve is demand vector is also given here. The next question is explain the role of random error in econometric model, differentiate between error and residual in context of linear regression model. Then the question is related to the Lorentz dominance principles, that is state the Lorentz dominance principle. How is the Gini coefficient related to Lorentz curve? So Lorentz principal dominance states that one income distribution Lorentz curve dominates another if it lies above the other curve for all the points on the graph, indicating a more equitable distribution of income. Then the question is distinguish between the seasonal fluctuation and cyclical fluctuations of a time series variable. Describe the methods of deseasonalization of the time series data. Why would you deseasonalize the data in estimating the linear trend of the seasonal time series variable? Then the questions are related to the econometric model or econometrics econometrics. So write down the basic principles of ordinary least square OLS, maximum likelihood estimators. In estimating the linear regression model, you can consider the regression model y is equal to beta times x plus e in explaining your answer. Then the question is about the heteroscedasticity. Explain why the presence of heteroscedasticity in the data set creates a problem of estimating a linear regression model. Suggest an appropriate method of estimation if heteroscedasticity presents in a data. Why is the problem of heteroscedasticity more likely to appear in the cross-section data and not in the time series data? By heteroscedasticity, it is a condition where the variance of the error variables in a regression model is not constant across all levels of the independent variables. Okay, so I have no, strength, or I don't have those skill sets to explain this question. So I will be taking the mathematical economics questions that were asked in this paper. So there are good number of questions from the mathematical economics. I hope you like this video. Please share and subscribe for more mathematical economics videos on this channel. Thank you. Have a nice day.